So, our program for the evening. Hobart Wagener, Boulder's most prolific modern architect. So, Wagener created the most successful architecture office in the history of Boulder. For 32 years, he worked with community leaders, homeowners, to design and build over 200 public and commercial buildings and homes, Boulder and throughout Colorado. His projects include St. John's Chapel, First Methodist Sanctuary, Boulder Country Club, Presbyterian Manor Apartments, which is fantastic, Fairview High School, Fruhoff Garden Center, the First National Bank, Midland Savings Bank. As a partner in Architectural Associates of Colorado, he collaborated in the design of the University of Colorado Engineering Sciences Complex. He designed the University of Colorado Kidditch dormitories in Williams Village. 16 of his buildings were featured in architectural and professional publications. 10 received national or regional honor. In 1971, Hoby was elected a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. In 1985, he was recognized as the Colorado Architect of the Year by the American Institute of Architects. In 1995, Williams Village was recognized the outstanding building in Colorado for the last 25 years. During his retirement years in San Diego, he led guided tours at the Salk Institute, designed by Louis Kahn. He was a devoted modernist from start to finish. Heavy stuff here. Our program tonight will be given by a guest speaker, not a stranger to Docomomo here, Leonard Segel, Executive Director of Historic Boulder. Mr. Segel splits his time as an architect, currently consulting with Denver design firm Kepler, and as the Executive Director of Historic Boulder, Inc. He's a founding board member of the Modern Architecture Preservation League of Colorado, co-author of the Historic Context Survey of Modern Architecture in Boulder, and though no longer with us here in our club, he was as many of you may remember, a founding board member. He says that today, just for fun, he likes to look at and talk about great design. So I think it's still one of us in ours. So with that, Mr. Segel and his talk, Hobart Wagener, Boulder's most prolific modern architect.
Thanks, Josh. Josh mentioned that I was a co-author of a survey of modern architecture in Boulder, and that was with Diane Ray and Michael Paglia. And what I got to do was I got to interview all these great Boulder modern architects. And one day, Hobart Wagener came to my office. I was working in Boulder, and I expected a guy in a three-piece suit and really, buttoned down. And he was wearing overalls, like blue jean overalls. He was so laid back, so relaxed, so down to earth, kind of a small town guy. And yet he had this amazing portfolio of work that he had done. And he was charming. He found out that I went to the University of Michigan and he had gone to the University of Michigan. So we were talking about Ann Arbor. I mean, he was just a down to earth, great guy. And I'm in charge of moving this forward. Yep. So the first image is just to give you the whole perspective of other architects who worked in Boulder in that mid-century era, from Charles Hartling, Roger Easton, and on and on and on. So Hobart Wagener was in amongst these people, and yet he had the most successful practice of any of those architects. And I'm going to start at the beginning of his life. Sioux Falls, South Dakota. This is where he was born, in kind of a prairie state. And that's the house that he grew up in. He was an only child, born in 101 years ago, almost to the day, in Sioux Falls. And as I mentioned, he went to the University of Michigan for architecture. So that's the college on the left. It's not the same building I attended. And then on the right, all these guys wearing vests to protect themselves from the ink, from the drawings that they're doing. It was very regimented and rigid. And he graduated in 1944 And the first thing he did is he joined the Navy. He was in World War II and he fought in the Battle of Okinawa. And he was there till the conclusion of the war. And then he found himself in New York City working for Engers and Higgins Architects. And they evolved they actually designed the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. So they went from neoclassical to stripped down classicism to modernism over a period of time. And during this time period, he heard about an architect named Pietro Belluschi, who was practicing in Portland, Oregon. And Pietro Belluschi was from Italy. He went to college at Cornell, and he got a job doing engineering in Eastern Oregon for, I believe, an oil company. And then he found himself made his way to Portland, and he became the prototype modernist architect in the West Coast, really, all the way up and down the West Coast. And he would do everything from these incredible high-rise buildings, very Mies van der Rohe style, to these ultra-light homes, ultra-light roofs, very light structure. Everything seemed to be floating. And this particular house here could have been something that Hobart Wagener worked on, because I'll show you some of the houses that he did in Boulder, and you'll see some influences there. I can't recall exactly why Hobart Wagener and his wife decided to move to Boulder. Could have been because he had an opportunity to teach at the University of Colorado. So the next images are some of Pietro Belluschi's projects. The Bank of America on the left, Juilliard Music and Dance College in the middle, and New York City, and the St. Mary Cathedral in San Francisco, which is a really interesting thin shell concrete structure. And I know some people even have a passion for that. And then here you see Hobart Wagener on the right, sitting to the left of James Hunter. James Hunter was the preeminent modern architect in Boulder at the time that Hoby Wagener, and he asked everybody to call him Hoby. Hoby Wagener came to Boulder, and he became his right hand or left hand to his designer. And he worked there for a few years. You can barely see in the top left, there's a rendering of the City Hall, the municipal building that was being designed while Hobart Wagener was in the office. And Hobart Wagener had an opportunity afterward to do an addition to that building. He did several additions to buildings in town, and I'll point those out. So, and these are the real pioneers of modernism in Boulder. Glenn Huntington, James Hunter, and Hobart Wagener. Glenn Huntington, whose father practiced in Denver and did some of the very earliest prairie writing style pieces of architecture. Glenn Huntington came to Boulder, had a very successful practice. Then he was lured back to Denver to work in the city's office of housing. James Hunter took over Glenn Huntington's firm, and then Hobart Wagener came out of Hunter's office. And I'm going to go through really quickly. I'm going to try to go through pretty quickly because there's a lot of stories to tell, but I have a lot of images here. Here's some of Glenn Huntington's work in the 40s and the 30s in Boulder. Very modernist, somewhat stripped out classicism, but you can almost see that, like the New York Five could have done that building on the top. This is the Boulder County Courthouse that Glenn Huntington designed. This Art Deco modern style was very popular in the West Coast, and Boulder's got this beautiful building here from that era. He was also very involved in, actually, he designed Boulder High School, a modern, Art Moderne style building, and using native stone, the Loveland and Lyon stone, sandstone, and then limestone. And then he also was the designer of the Central Park Bandshell, which Historic Boulder has had a hand in getting landmarked. And I'm going to do a quick commercial about Historic Boulder since I'm here as the executive director of Historic Boulder. This is the 50th year that Historic Boulder has been in existence. there was not a landmark ordinance in Boulder. There was not a historic preservation ordinance in Boulder until Historic Boulder came into being with some really dynamic women who kicked the status quo and created this organization and got the city to pay attention to the legacy buildings that they were losing. And in fact, Historic Boulder bought some of those buildings, like the Boulder Theater, like the Boulderado, like the Highland Club, stabilized them, got them landmarked, and then sold them. We've been doing that for years. So this is another Huntington project. In fact, he lived in this building with his family. It has rooftop, flat roof decks. It's still there on University Hill. Very cool building. Here's James Hunter, who inherited the work of and the practice of Glenn Huntington. And I call him the teacher of modernism because a lot of the next generation of modernists, like Hobart Wagener, like Charles Hartley, like Tish Papachristo, like Roger Easton, came out and worked in his office and then came out of it. And he gave them a lot of leeway to design. So it was a collaborative, very collaborative office. And then the building on the right is the municipal city building. And we'll see that on the tour this weekend. The building on the left is a Le Corbusier design, and look how similar they are. So even in the backwater of Boulder, Colorado, they knew what was going on in the world because the university was here in Boulder, and it brought people from all over the world to this town. And the federal labs were starting to show up, bringing more intellectuals from around the world. So very influential. Le Corbusier shows up in a city hall building. This is another building by James Hunter. It's a kind of a short version of a Mies van der Rohe Tower, right downtown, still there. And then he designed some innovative kind of barrel vault gymnasium and solar shaded high school or junior high school. Early on, starting at very early, here's some of Hobart Wagener's work. This is his own home, very low, flat roof, overhangs, big overhangs, and then using local stone that probably came from the site. And then you can see a series of these mid-century modern homes that he designed, mostly for college professors in the community. And this building on the top left, originally, again, for a college professor, is a landmark. And one of the listeners on this call is Sherry Bell. Sherry bought the house, did a beautiful addition to it, and then landmarked it. So these butterfly roofs that asymmetrically stagger are part of that vocabulary of what Hobart Wagener was doing. And here's another roof with a butterfly roof, another house, butterfly roof. Mr. Tron was a college professor, and this was Hobart Wagener's second home. This is right on the golf course at Boulder Country Club, and he began to get really infatuated with these pyramidal shaped roofs with a peaked skylight on the top. And that's a photo in the home. And to the right was this garden underneath the atrium, underneath that skylight. And on the tour this weekend will be the Midland Savings Bank, which is very much derivative of this, with a skylight, and we'll be able to go inside that building and see it. So, and there's some great woodwork details in that building too. So, Hobart Wagener's own home. This is kind of a split gable roof, but you can see how soaring the roof is, and then the overhangs kick out on the sides. Just a great space. This is a savings bank, and if you look through the trees, you can see that same house that was Pietro Berluschi had designed from 1948. This is 1964, another version of that. And then here you see a couple different versions of these pyramidal roofs that he was infatuated with, exploring expressive roof shapes. First Presbyterian Church and St. John's Church. And then this beauty, it's the most fantastic A-frame in all of Colorado, or one of them. The Wesley Foundation Church, right off the campus of the University of Colorado. It's there to this day. It's just a really cool rendering in the top left. And then the building that just has this dialogue of the upper kind of inverted valleys and then the peaks in the lower portion of the building. It's just really cool and done really inexpensively, but it's still holding up well. Here you have an addition to one of the oldest churches in town, First United Methodist Church. And it was executed, the original building, in all this lush sandstone. So Wagener carried that sandstone across the first floor. He had these flattened arches that brought light down into the lower level of the building. And then the main level was the sanctuary, and he has hyperbolic paraboloid roofs. So that's a mouthful, but the geometry of the roofs is very complicated and yet in a certain way simple. And it's really elegant, and it's this symphony of colored blocks in the space. So it's just gorgeous space inside. And then here you see two different apartment buildings and two different approaches. The one on the left has that butterfly roof approach to and there's a whole series of these buildings that extend down College Avenue. And then the one on the right is a senior living residence, and where you might expect the most solid portion on the corner of the building, he has the lightest elements. He has these balconies on the corner that really lighten up the building. And it's when Boulder could build high rises, it's one of our few high rises in town. This is an incredible design. This was Hobart Wagener's own office building for his business. It's this, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of Dutch to style. It's craftsman because it's stick built. It's Miesian because it's regular. It's got roof decks. It's got solar shading, and it's hovering over a pond. It's just unbelievable. So as you can imagine, water and wood don't mix very well. And the building was falling into disrepair. And somebody bought it, and rather than deal with the wood, they just smeared stucco over it. And so it's this confection now, but it still has the bones of the original building. And it's you can see now more of the pond effect. And it's just an incredible space. And this is as he was just the most successful businessman. He could talk to people, convince them, corporations, churches, homeowners, senior living communities, that he was their guy. And he had a big group of people working. You can see this whole building was filled with architects. This is the First National Bank building on Canyon Boulevard and Broadway. And it looks like a Le Corbusier style building because it's got brise soleil. It looks like it's a multi-story building. It's only 3 stories, but it looks like it's double that because of the articulation of the facade. It's this egg crate shape with deep recesses. And then behind it is this incredibly thin shell concrete pavilion that was a bank drive-through and banking hall. And sadly, the building was remodeled twice. First by Wallace Palmer and second by Downey Thorpe and James when I was working there. And I remember the day when the Wallace Palmer exterior was pulled off and this building was still underneath it. This is what it turned into. And it's kind of like, what's going on here? This is the 3-building composition that wanted to have brick, and so it changed radically. And it was one of those painful moments when you're working in an architecture office and it's just not going in the way that you would hope, but you're not a principal and it's not your project and you have to let things go. So, but I'm just going to pull back. Yeah. And you're going to see that several times in this presentation. And that's why I want to bring, and Historic Boulder wants to bring all periods of history in every era that are important to Boulder's story. And Hobart Wagener is one of those stories that's important to preserve. This is the Ball Brothers, which is now Ball Aerospace campus in East Boulder. And almost every single one of those buildings is going to be torn down because Ball Aerospace is growing so successfully. It's putting so many satellites up in space, and they put the newest space telescope up there. But that gorgeous tower is going to be torn down. And Historic Boulder is working on talking to them. They offered the building to the city of Boulder to see if the city wanted the building, and the city turned it down because they have no money. And it's kind of a mess, a code mess inside the building. But it's not completely done yet because Historic Boulder is still whispering some things in their ears, so we'll see. So there's 3 public civic buildings I wanted to point out. The County Courts building on the left, which is kind of a Marcel Breuer type concrete, precast concrete building. This fire station on the left, the butterfly roof with a symphony of brick patterning that was been totally messed over. It's been remodeled and it's neoclassical now. And then the municipal building addition. So the municipal building on the right is the one that James Hunter designed. On the left is the addition that Hobart Wagener designed. And we'll see that on the tour this weekend. Community Market has this really thin shell concrete roof with T's, structural T's. And then the Fruit House Garden, a pyramidal building, has been torn down to make way for housing in town. The Casey Junior High School looks like it could be a Renzo piano building. Just unbelievable. This is but it was demolished. It was an addition. It was demolished. They expanded the school, but unbelievable way to bring North Light into that space. And then the Southern Hills Junior High School, another building, very modernist, very formal modernism. Wagener designed the Fairview High School at a time when pod classrooms were all the rage. There were no walls, they were just pods. And the building was hexagonal and geometric. And it also is on a hillside and there are no stairs. You just go down ramps in the building. It's really unique design, and it's a very successful school. University of Colorado. He did several buildings there. You can see Hobart Wagener, the top image in the middle. He's pointing to Williams Village. So he was involved in the master plan for Williams Village. Those are the Williams brothers. It was their ranch there. He designed that pyramidal, hey, surprise, that pyramidal student union. And then to the left is the engineering center that he worked on with Bill Muchow. And then Kittredge Village, which is a modern interpretation of the Clowder Italian vernacular up on the campus. And then here's that Williams Village Student Union being torn down a few years ago. The towers are still there. So I'm going to focus on what Historic Boulder did to get one of his buildings landmarked. And most people thought the building was a dud. And we were able to convince the city that it wasn't a dud. And I'll take you through the presentation pretty quickly. It's this building. This is the Midland Savings Bank. This was the first of about a dozen branch banks he designed for Midland Savings. It's that pyramid with a glass apex on the top. And we talked about it in the city in terms of the importance of Hobart Wagener and the building design qualities. You've heard about the importance of Hobart Wagener. The qualities of the building had to do with materials and space, geometry. There was sustainable design, and it was cost effective. And then I went so far as to say, there's something about this building that it's a prototypical from the ancient pyramids. And it's this roof that hovers above the ground. And so it's a little far-fetched maybe, but it relates to pyramidal architecture, and architects are inspired by that. I also related it to the kind of architecture that a lot of banks wanted their banks to look like, which were temples, Roman temples. How many of you grew up in a town where there was a bank that was a Roman temple or a derivative of a Roman temple. Well, if you look at the Pantheon there and the colonnade that runs across and the triangle, and then you look at the building below, the atrium Midland Savings, there's a comparison. It's not direct, but there's something there about that, especially when you're looking at the building straight on. And then if you look at the skylight in the Pantheon and then the skylight in the atrium building, they're very connected. And then the other thing, a bank. Hello, the Masonic symbol for the dollar bill is a pyramid with an eye, all-seeing eye, a triangle on the top. So there you go. It's right there. There was historic significance too for this building. The first life was a savings and loan. And it was a place where average people could go and get a loan for a mortgage. And Boulder was booming during this time period, and banks like Midland Savings gave loans to white people. So Midland Savings was notorious, not the one in Boulder, but for years and years, from the 40s up until then, up until the 1968 Fair Housing Act, and this building was built in 1969, they actually redlined against people of color. So, and it was not a proud moment for Midland Savings. And in fact, when the city council approved this building to be landmark, they would not allow the Midland Savings name to be included in the landmark because they thought it was bad history. The other aspect of the life, this building was known as the Atrium Building, and it formed this 3-building complex of government in the city of Boulder. There was the municipal building that you've seen, Park Central Building, where the building department for all of us architects who go in there, and then the Atrium Building on the right. By the way, on Saturday, we will meet in the middle at the band shell, at the seats at the band shell. And you can park pretty much along 13th Street there. So hopefully that'll be easy for you. The farmer's market ends at 1 o'clock. So yeah, so it should be cleared out by 3. So then we also pointed out this building could have a potential adaptive reuse. The doors on this, you could add doors on the south side to open to the farmer's market, and you could open the interior up potentially and have it become an all year round farmer's market or other city uses. And then we pointed out, well, reusing the building is the greenest thing you can do. But if you do need to develop the site, you could develop right there. You could put on those parking lots a building that could house people downtown, or you could tear the building down and build a great wall of canyon and block off the buildings that are behind it. And the building behind it is the Dushanbe Tea House, which is one of the newest landmarks in Boulder, even though it was built only in the 1990s. So we showed them this, we showed them some options, and then we wrapped it up by saying, isn't this a great building and shouldn't you landmark it? And they agreed to landmark the building. And then I just want to finish with this last image. These are a few more images of Hobart Wagener's work from homes, flat roof homes, angle, gable homes, Boulder Country Club, an office building, and then for some more information about this, please reach out to me at leonard@historicboulder.org or check out our Historic Boulder website. We've just updated it. After a few months, we've revised it, and there's a lot of great information on our website. So that is my presentation for tonight, and I'm open to comments, questions, and I don't know how much time we have.
We got all the time as long as you'll stay with us, Len, we'll ask you questions.
Okay, great.
Well, let's hear a round of applause. I'll, just before we turn the floor over to Len, I'll adjourn the meeting in case this gets long.
Alan, did you have a thing that your house is somewhat of a similar concept with your?
My house predates.
It does. So I was curious, do you think did he know about your house, or did you know?
I'm sure he did. I knew it.
Okay, I didn't know if you took any inspiration. Who knows? was just curious, because there are a lot of similarities. Do you know,
Inspiration for my house, one of the inspirations was in Houston.
and I,
There were many others.
do you know, so Sternberg also did a school in that pods, and I wonder if, so you said that was just super popular in that time frame, because there's actually an elementary school near my house that Sternberg did, the overhead was very similar to that high school.
Yeah, it was very popular in the 70s and 80s. And I remember when I was a student back in the 70s and 80s, and I remember the thought was create free space that could be very flexible and have very few windows because you don't want to have the students get distracted by looking outside. So it was horrible in many ways, but it was very popular. It went across the country, that kind of pod architecture.
So what's interesting is that Sternberg was actually mid-60s, and his had no like exterior windows. It had windows all looking into a central courtyard.
Yeah.
So his was a little different from that.
So-
When I was with John Anderson, we did 2 schools in a row on the modified pod concept. Yale Elementary.
Skip it.
I know Marachet is also,
Marshall was done on the
and that's also in that pod. I know that for my visitors are there.
So at what point did Hoby start to wrap the office up, and what became of his office?
It's a good question. Wagener, I think, finished his practice in the late 70s, I believe, and there were a few architects that carried on, but it didn't carry on as Wagener Associates. They went out on their own. Like Jim Vandervorst was one of those architects that went off on their own. And I think there's some people, I don't know, Dave Barrett is on this call, or he was earlier. He's a prominent architect in Boulder, and he might know more about that. So Dave, if you know anything more about the Wagener practice, please let us know.
Who might we know came out of his office?
I believe Bruce Downing came out of the office, Downing, Thorpe, and James. And, but no, I don't really have a rich history of that. So that's a good one. Good question.
There was that series of working in each other's offices.
Yeah. I know another person, Wallace Palmer, Wally Palmer, Hoby and Wally. It sounds like my 3 sons, right? Hoby and Wally. Wallace Palmer came out of that office, and he went on. He actually executed the towers at Williams Village, those really beautiful sculptural towers. He did a series of modern office buildings in town, Wallace Palmer. So that's somebody that I remember coming out of that office.
Did he do anything in Denver? Did he ever come kind of out of the valley?
I haven't seen anything printed of work that he did in Denver.
I know one of his houses in Netherlands came on maybe 18 months ago.
Oh.
And that one was like an octagonal house, sunlight. And I mean, now that you point out all that, like the skylight in the center, I'm like, oh yeah, that was very classically his. That one was up in Netherlands, but I don't know that I've seen it. Just curious.
But he did 200 projects in the Boulder area.
Just a lot.
He did these Midland savings banks, and there was one in Fort Collins, there was one in Loveland, there was one in Longmont. There is one off of Wadsworth in Denver.
Well, the Midland Savings Building is downtown. Building's still there.
So maybe just that.
Interesting.
Are these archives stored anywhere?
These archives are stored at the Carnegie Library in Boulder. So the Carnegie Library has most of the archives of these architects, and it's an amazing building. It's a neoclassical little gem right next to the Museum of Boulder, and there's a great story about it that involves Frank Lloyd Wright. So Frank Lloyd Wright ran off with one of his clients, Mamie Borthwick Cheney. She left Chicago to come to Boulder because she wanted to leave her husband, and she was using an excuse that her friend was pregnant. She wanted to help her friend through pregnancy. And so she came out and she worked at the Carnegie Library. She was one of the first college-educated women at the University of Michigan, and very, very smart woman. And she went on to take Frank Lloyd Wright from Boulder to Europe. And then it exploded Frank Lloyd Wright's brains, and he became this even a more incredible architect than he was before because of Mrs. Cheney. And they met up and rendezvoused at the Carnegie Library in Boulder, where the archives of Boulder's architects exist today.
That's neat. I never heard that version.
And she was killed.
I guess
fire
Yes, she was killed in a fire at the house he designed for her.
before the
What else about Boulder architects or historic Boulder do you want to know about?
What are some of the next projects you guys have?
Glad you asked. Thanks. So on the 18th of May, there's a tour at Central Park talking about the history of the park. I'll tell you some of that. It involves Frederick Law Olmsted, the people who designed Central Park in New York. So we're going to have a tour more in depth about that. And then there's going to be a lecture at 6:30 at the First Congregational Church by Peter Pollack, who is an expert in the work of Frederick Law Olmsted, and is going to talk about how it changed Boulder, taking Boulder Creek from a industrial zone, because it was a mining industrial zone, and there were squatters' homes there, and there were prostitutes living right where the municipal building is. And so Olmsted said, let's clear that out and make this a beautiful park system. There's more to the story than that, but that's something worth following. Once a month during the summer, we have a history hike in Boulder open space. So that's going to happen. There'll be it's going to be above Chautauqua. So you'll start in Chautauqua and go up into the foothills there below the Flatirons in May. In June, we're going to have Nori Winter giving us a lecture on the future of historic preservation. Nori Winter is a planner, and he was a president of Historic Boulder some years ago. And we have a membership meeting, gatherings, and where we're going to have three main events. Membership meeting where we'll be honoring our 50 years of people. We're going to have a gala in August at this 200 car collection in Boulder, which is going to be super cool. And we'll be honoring our partners at that. And then, so we have people, partners, and then third one's going to be projects. And we have that going on. And then in September, we have Landmarks for the Future tour in conjunction with the Month of Modern group in Boulder. In October, we have Meet the Spirits at the Columbia Cemetery. So that's a landmark in and of itself. And we have different people portray different characters who were buried there. And we're going to make it more diverse this year. So it's not going to be just the captains of industry. We're going to have a diversity to understand what the population of Boulder really was. We have an app that's coming out this summer that is the African American Pioneering Families, a self-guided walking tour app for that. And then the last thing is our holiday house tour. And that's where we have a little bit more substantial homes, older homes typically. And we don't have that nailed down yet, but that'll be in early December. So that's what we've got cooking. And then we have advocacy going on as we speak. So there's projects such as the band shell, and I'll talk more about that on Saturday. But we have several different projects going on when we're trying to convince people that preservation is a good idea.
That's awesome. Great. That's
Thanks.
Find the calendar. Yeah. I feel like we need a few more. We need a few more people that are motivated like that for Docomomo to keep our chapter going, and also Historic Littleton is in 32 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to bring some youthful motivation, but it's a little bit slow down a little with Historic Littleton.
Yeah. Well, it's been a challenge for all of us because we haven't been able to meet in person very much. And so we're really excited about having these in-person events coming up. It's still scary. COVID's around, so just be careful. But people are feeling a little bit safer because of the boosters and everything else. Historic Boulder's been around for 50 years, so we do have a broader membership, a pretty big mailing list. We're always looking to add members and diversify our membership too. So please, if you want to know more about it, just reach out to me.
So
Is it 501c3? Yeah.
Will you do, because I have a wedding on Saturday at Botanic Gardens. Not the worst place for a wedding, but it is coinciding directly with that. Would you be willing to do your?
Yeah, by popular demand, we could do it again for sure.
I would love to actually wander around Boulder more, because every time I go up to the mall, I'm always like finding new buildings.
Yep. I mean, you can really do self-guided. Are the addresses? Did I put the addresses here?
Maybe I should take one of those and walk around.
Take them. There's only one building that we're going to be able to go into for sure. The others are from the outside. So you've got the powers of observation, being that, but I'd be happy to have it again. Absolutely.
So we can bring our dogs. We're not going to go outside.
We are going to go inside one building. Yeah.
Looks like we have a couple more chats too, but we should probably.
Oh, do we? This is Adam's job.
Do we know where the list of? We take all the list of the buildings. I feel like there was a.
Oh, yeah, we have.
I go up there and then do the tiki bar or tropical bar. Juggles is what we usually go up there for.
Now, Len, what's going on with Paul? What are they proposing?
So the question is, what's going on with Ball Aerospace? So I'm going to jump to that slide. At least I'm going to. Oh, I can't. Let's see. I just go.
You just step on it.
Yep. Here we go. Now I gotta go back. Sorry, folks, if I'm making you nauseous. Okay, so what's going on with Ball Aerospace is they are so successful that they're building 350,000 square feet of new clean room laboratory fabrication factory for satellites and space exploration. It's actually not happening on this site. The sad thing is it's happening off to the right. What they're doing here is tearing those buildings down and building a parking lot. Yeah, parking lot all the way to the street. And the building, the tower itself, the floor to floor is probably 9.5 feet. It's really low. The ceilings are like 7 feet inside. It's super low. The stairs don't meet the codes. The elevator doesn't meet the codes. The building leaks. It's energy efficient, and it doesn't meet the Boulder's super high standards for energy savings. So they say that they explored it really hard, the facilities people, but they just couldn't make that work. So and they are tearing down all those buildings except for the one bottom left, and that's the original laboratory building, and they're going to keep that. And so that's the story of Ball Aerospace. And you know, they're an innovator, they're a major employer, they're a big taxpayer in the community. They bring a lot of prestige to Boulder, and every historic preservation organization only has so much political capital to accomplish successful preservation. And we feel like we kind of have all we're going to get with the savings of the original building, as much as it pains us to see that cool tower go down. And so it's not a done deal yet, but because it's supposed to be in phase 2 when the tower goes down. But all these cool butterfly roof buildings, these lab buildings, they're going to go down. So
Save like one of those butterfly roof buildings and then put like a parking garage instead of a surface lot, which
they're putting a parking garage to the south. I mean, the photo south to the bottom. They're also putting a parking garage. So yeah, and they're even even have car charging stations and car share. I mean, they're doing everything that more than most companies would do to reduce the amount of parking, and they still need a ton of parking until we go to a driverless world, and that
so
might.
they like pay for a bus to pick them all up at their house each day, like they do in San Francisco. Was it Google or is that
Probably.
Twitter? I can't remember. One of them does it.
What's really neat about this, and I'd love to go up there and walk around that while it's there. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's the same kind of thing as doing with office building, where it's this kind of exo skeleton. Is that concrete or is that?
It's concrete block with some kind of framing on the outside. So I'm working on getting a tour. So if I'm successful, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I have a really big space in Broomfield,
Right on the edge of West.
near Interlochen, heading toward. Yeah,
I'm just always showing passes by it. But they have a huge, big green area in front of that building, and like build more there.
it's
They have
a
a giant field to build on.
it's a really cool story. I mean, the story of the Ball brothers is they made glass jars for canning, and one of the sons of the founder was like, "I'm not going to do that. I want to do something with space. I know this guy in Boulder who's a teacher out there. I'm going to head out there," and they started this little laboratory out here using the brain trust of the university and their manufacturing capabilities with glass and other high precision tool and die machinery. And it's been gaining momentum over the years until now. I mean, they just, as I mentioned, they put the latest, coolest telescope together and put it in space. It's amazing. So that's what they're about.
Are there drawings?
It's a good question. The question was, are there drawings of these buildings? And I believe that all these drawings exist. Either All Aerospace has them or the Carnegie has them. So that would be a good question for Historic Boulder, is to say, can you make sure that the drawings of these buildings are open to the public and contributed to the Carnegie Library? And I'd be happy if any of you wanted to go on another weekend trip to come up and walk around the building with you, or just go on your own. But let me know if you're going up there, and if I'm available, I'll hop around with you. You just flashing your badge. I'm a historic preservationist, and I've got to see your building. And they'll, you know, you can walk around. It's not easy.
It's not as hard as Lockheed Martin, where you're very gated into those buildings.
Yeah. Anything else about Hobart Wagener or the legacy of preservation in Boulder?
Len, are those thin shell?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're wood frame. The question was, are the roofs a thin shell concrete structure? And I don't think so. But there's some really cool concrete block pattern and work on these buildings. Any questions from the Zoomers?
There it is.
Yeah, just stop sharing, and then you should. There's the chat. There's.
I know there was a chat that was on.
So another one is what church is the addition? The fantastic, the hyperbolic paraboloids.
First Congregational Church.
Are those Michelle? Yes. Are they?
I think they are because the rest of that building is concrete. The question is the roof structure of that church addition thin shell concrete or some other structure? We believe it's concrete. I also have read that he consulted with Pietro Belluschi on that project. He brought Pietro Belluschi in to help him and advise him on that project.
When was that?
No. In the 60s.
So at the end of his life, he packs up, closes this baby down, and heads out to California.
And he moved to Coronado Island. And Coronado Island, he retired. And he had family in Colorado, but he may have had family in California. And then on weekends, he would be one of the people who would tour you around the Salk Institute designed by Louis Kahn. So you could see that he admired modern architecture in that spirit to the end, even if he wasn't practicing it. He retired, though. He had an architect who retired. And it shows that he was successful. He was monetarily successful. Whereas Charles Hartling, who I think was the most brilliant design architect, most inventive design architect in Boulder, possibly in Colorado, struggled. His wife needed to work in order to be able to keep the family going. So he was not the best businessman, whereas Hobart Wagener was. He just had a head for it.
It's a very unusual person that can do both. It really is. Wow. Yeah.
Well, thank you for hanging in there, those of you on the Zoom. Anybody have any questions or final thoughts? Okay. You know where to find me. Thanks.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. It's interesting. You know, Belluschi was the advisor for the Air Force Academy.
He was.
And Netch did work in Okinawa, so I'm wondering if paths ever crossed that way too. Next work. Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the engineering building is somewhat controversial on campus.
Yeah, to this day.
Is it really?
Yeah.
What is it? Didn't follow the Clouder design to the T.
All right. Thank you. You can keep that.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, I can just keep that. Well, no, I can just that. But yeah, I'll figure out. I can get it to you Saturday if that works. Yeah, let's do that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the trip. I think it's gonna be good. I know it is.
Or you can go to a wedding.
Where is it?
I have no idea. He works at the museum, so I'm sure it probably was somebody he knew to get over there. So maybe it's probably pretty one. So
So did you ever meet Wagner?
Yeah, as you said, I met him in his blue jean overalls. That was the one and only time. I know. During his, he was retired then. He just totally changed his persona. He was a three-piece or a two-piece suit gray guy.
Yeah,
like that.
me.
At that time, everybody.
Yeah.
That's neat.
We continue with single family even when we
I think the single family work dropped off, and his institutional work, civic work, picked up.
Do you have a sense, Len, so him being a really balanced sort of business guy, do you have a sense of, based on the size of his office, was he acting as sort of a design guy there, or was he more on the business side of things?
I don't know for sure. I believe he was still had a strong hand in design, because you can see that even in the early days when he was designing those single family homes, they were expressive buildings by themselves, little gems, little jewels. They were experimenting with different roof shapes and different materials, and that was just his thing. Yeah, and then I think that mindset grew. It got a little formulaic with these pyramid shapes, and so I think that he might have been not so involved in these projects. I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, the house that you live in, yeah, we'll use that same shape. It works wonderful. Yes, let's use that again.
So the touring the Midland Bank, interior wise, what's been modified? Are there a lot of modifications that have been made, or are there still some things over here we'll talk through that are the original?
I was surprised at how much was intact. I actually have not been in that building before, and I heard that it had been really cut up. And it has. So you don't really have. There's no banking hall anymore, and so offices got kind of chopped up around the perimeter. There's still a sense of a lobby. There's still some really beautiful woodwork, and the atrium is intact, and the mezzanine level is intact. So you can see it, especially if you squint your eyes a little bit.
imagine a few less walls than
A few less walls. And somebody from the Parks Department will let us in. I don't know that the municipal building will not be open, so we could try to go in there. That's been remodeled several times, so there's not a whole lot that's still intact from that building inside. And we can go into the public library building, and that part of the library is still pretty intact, including the walkway that crosses the creek to the new addition.
Are any of the buildings on the national register?
I don't know the names. There are only a couple of boulders that are on the national list. So
just surprising considering because we don't have that many on the national environment in general.
And the courthouse might be national register. That's not a flag.
That's pretty.
There's surprisingly few proposals to put buildings on the National Register in Colorado. And for next week, we are reviewing 4 proposals.
Historic Littleton's working on the ditch. One that we're working on. And there's a bank barn that we're working on from 1870.
A bank.
Banked barn.
Uh-huh.
So it's banked into a hill.
Oh, yeah.
So
One of
it's
those just
two
got
stories.
approved last week.
Well, we may do a hostile landmark on it because Toll Brothers is like nice. So that's, but those are much older, but that's what we're working on, are 2 things that not as
Dude,
was
does
trying to-
Toll own that? No.
Oh, they're trying to redevelop that whole land and then they're gonna move the creek that runs through it to try and make it not a flood zone. No, it's a whole, it's the land if you've driven on South Santa Fe. Right before you get to C470, so it's right next to Littleton Equine Medical Center, the huge vet clinic that's right there.
Yeah.
It's the land right next to that. There's that really big old barn that's right there. And Toll Brothers was like, we'll move the barn. And we're like, well, you can't move a banked barn because it's banked into the hill it's banked on.
bank.
So
Break
they're
the
like,
bank.
we'll build a replica. And it's just a whole lot.
I just want to interrupt a second. So there's a gentleman, Vern Syro, who is on this call.
Yeah.
Mr. Syro, he was involved with the Boulder Public Library.
Fantastic.
And I don't know if Mr. Syro, did you have any connection to Hobart Wagener in your career? Are you still there?
Of course, I had a lot of connection with him, but I had no personal connection with him. I've been involved in several projects that are related to Hoby, that Hoby did, in terms of renovating them or whatever,
No.
or not renovating them, or protecting them.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to see you here in this meeting. It's an honor to have you here.
I'd be happy to join you in your tour on Saturday.
Oh, great. We'll see you then. 3 o'clock on Saturday.
You're touring the library, right?
We will go where we finish. We'll finish at the library. So we're going to start at the band shell, do a loop to the east, and then work our way to the west and end up at the library.
Okay, I'm happy to join you.
Cool. Excellent.
Lynn, do you know
Time
what's
is it?
happening with that whole?
It starts at 3 o'clock at the band shell.
Okay,
Okay.
With
That'll
that
be
whole
fun.
city plan? Boulder was going to link the library. They were going to have one big access between the library, actually between the band shell, I think.
Yeah, so this is a great question. The question is what's going on with the Civic Center. And the city of Boulder had shown about almost 10 years ago now a master plan to redevelop the Civic Center. It included tearing down the band shell. It included putting a performing arts center on the west end of the Civic Center area. And it's been talked about again because the citizens of Boulder voted some more money to do a study on the bookends of the Civic Center. And they're going to focus on the east bookend, which is where the band shell is, and the atrium building, the tea house. And 13th Street connects to, this is where the farmer's market is, it connects to downtown, to Pearl Street. And if you follow it to the south, it goes straight to CU. If you go just up the hill, it'll go to the brand new conference center that's going to be constructed there. So there's a lot of interest to do some kind of more set up, designed pedestrian walkway from University down 13th Street and linking to downtown Boulder. And so Historic Boulder has been asked to be a part of the conversation because are some historic properties there, including the Olmsted Park and the Saco de Boer design for the band shell park. Saco de Boer designed Cheesman Park, Cherry Green Boulevard, Spear Boulevard, Red Rocks, and several other things. So it's being talked about again, but there's nothing actively being developed right now.
Would you pay attention to what is proposed that might affect the tea house? I have seen an older proposal that just kind of swamped the tea house within buildings.
Yeah, there was a proposal. There was a proposal that built a C-shaped building around the tea house, and it would have torn down the atrium building, so it would start at Canyon, then run up 14th Street, and then go across Arapahoe, and it would be housing, maybe artist housing. Next to the tea house is Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. So there was some thought about making artist co-housing or something in that area. And yes, it was going to really wrap the tea house. And with the preservation of the atrium building, some of the pressure of 4-story buildings, only 4-story in Boulder, looming down over the top of the tea house are being considered. And there's a huge problem with not having enough workforce housing in Boulder in relation to the great jobs that we have in Boulder. And so this particular city council is looking for ways to develop more housing for workforce. And that's one of the proposals, is to wrap that site next to Central Park with housing. There is a proposal to tear down the library, the north wing of the library, and put a performing arts center there. And the Dairy Center has said that they're interested in running it because there's so much interest in having more performing arts in Boulder.
Well, if Boulder follows its own policies, the whole second floor of the library, the north section of it, was built to hold a whole other floor. But that would be substantially increasing the density of housing or whatever it is, office space, in a floodway, which I understand is inconsistent with the policies of the city of Boulder. Incidentally,
Boulder is actually the number one worst flood risk in the state.
So I don't see how you can tear down a building and then build anything else. As I understand the flood code.
Yeah.
The library was built over the creek.
And the rest of it is in a flood.
It's in the floodplain all the way over to, the big glass wall. It's all the way over to that. No, excuse me. I'm sorry. There's the north wing and then there's the center section, and both of those are in the floodway. And on your tour, I can show you a line that the city attorney had built into the building so he could always demonstrate where that demarcation is, because it related to the language in the bond issue. That is to say, he was interpreting the bond issue to say you cannot build any of the bond funds in the floodway. And so he wanted a line that demarcated where that happened. That is to say, where the separation of floodway and non-floodway related to the building. It's kind of an interesting little architectural feature that nobody would notice.
Well, it'll be great to have you on the tour to get associate sites. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Len. We really appreciate it. Yeah, and gosh, Saturday's gonna be phenomenal.
I'm like,
So I've
no,
taken,
I'm set.
I've taken the Len talk or tour. And I know that this is gonna be really good, so.
Hope to be there for the first time. I will be done with that.
Yeah. And then afterward, we're going to be a stone's throw away from Pearl Street to go have a libation. Look at some more architecture.
And with some of these events, like the Olmsted talk and so on, is it possible for you to forward those to Adam or Josh? And so
I can absolutely do that, or just go to the Historic Boulder website. And we have our events tab. You can go on there and you don't have to wait for me or anybody else. It's okay. So, you know, if you're not able to fall asleep tonight, hit that. This is website. Check it out.
Giving you hell, or speaker giving you hell.
sounds good.
Yep. Thank you.